You're watching Open Agenda.
Welcome to Open Agenda. I'm your host, Joe White. Today's episode, we're going to cover some of the local politics for both Salisbury and Wicomico County, starting with some of the legislation that came out from the governor's office about funding of local projects, the legislation that's going to be considered by the county council, and also an update on some of the information we've been hearing coming about the traffic incident concerning the mayor of Salisbury, Randy Taylor. In order to talk about that, brought in Dr. Joe Venosa from Salisbury, Mr. Mike Goldberg from Ardella. Thank you, gentlemen.
Hey.
So, Joe, I want to talk first about this legislation that came out with, or not legislation, but from
policy.
Westport. Policy.
Policy.
Can you talk a little bit about it?
Sure. So this broke today, and again, just for clarification, we're filming on Tuesday, August 5th. So essentially, this is breaking news. But what came out and was reported to local media very recently was that there is a series of, quote, high priority projects that the governor's office will essentially transfer funds to for economic development.
And that's through this program, the Maryland Coordinated Permit Review Process?
Yeah, basically it's a way, and again, permitting form is a big thing all over the country, frankly all over the world, in a lot of nations where there is that kind of bureaucracy. There's, huge concerns about development, environmental issues, and so this is not a particularly new thing as far as...
I think you said they have it in New Jersey now, right?
They are trying. Well, I mean, they want more of it for obvious reasons. Yeah. But the whole idea of permitting reform is essentially to get projects to move quicker, right? That's the sort of key goal, especially when it comes to housing and economic development. Now, the issue here is this. Traditionally, when cities or towns or any kind of municipality is engaging in an economic enterprise, the developers and the authorities are going to, engage in an LDA. Essentially, an LDA is part of the broader set of agreements that happen in terms of how a project is done, how it's financed.
Like I'm going to build 200 units on this piece of property and Correct. 180 parking spots
Correct.
Next to it. Okay.
Absolutely. So that's been something that Salisbury has certainly engaged in the past, and in the last 8 to 10 years, it's really been sort of going at full speed.
Kind of going back to Jake Day's term.
Well, that essentially was Jake Day's political existence, was theoretically economic development. Now, here's the concern. What this new policy does, it takes the authority away from cities and municipalities to work with those LDA agreements as a matter of giving the funding to the developers.
So the state has the money.
Right.
And the city of Salisbury wants to put through the vetting process.
Right.
The state would now, according to this new policy, be able to give the developer the money directly without using the local government.
They just transfer the money right to the developer. Now, whether or not this is going to impact things like actual zoning laws or historic district commission stipulations, that's yet to be seen. But the key takeaway here is that basically local governments have been bypassed to give developers the money. Now the question is, okay, if they can use that, what's going to happen? But if they can't use that, does it just mean that state money, which is our tax money, does it just sit there in an account in perpetuity?
Well, Mike, you've covered two stories in the last few months that I think relate to this. One being the planning and zoning meeting in November of 24 for the density increase in Salisbury, but also the biodiesel refinery out on Atkins Road. I mean, that's a situation where the state gave a developer of this biodiesel refinery money directly, and that gentleman usurped local laws. I mean, lied on permits. How does this make you feel knowing that now the state's almost doubling down on the fact that they just want to give money directly to these developers?
We have a big problem in Maryland when they're taking control of a local area away from local people. And certainly Annapolis does not make themselves accessible to folks in Wicomico County particularly.
Even with the county executive?
yeah, even with the county executive.
She was been in D.C. now.
That's right, wrong capital.
But it's, they're the other side of the bay. They have a, very different perspective on governance and, different perspective on what I think most local people view as what the future of our county, our traditions, our culture.
They couldn't possibly know from over there.
Well, they couldn't. And
Don't we have the Secretary of Housing from Salisbury?
Well, Jake Day,
Right,
but I think we've shown that that's the problem when you.
Yeah.
And he's come out in support of like the hotel over on Lot 10, where it's like, we just give him the money. Well, it's not his money to give away.
He thinks
and
it
it's
is,
really
though.
it's Randy Taylor's fiduciary job to say, hey, listen, I got to make sure these things are built to the specs that we've agreed to.
And this is part of the issue, and I don't disagree with that. And I think generally it's a problem in most states, but when you have people who are supposedly from here representing us that are in a cabinet position in Annapolis, I think that also perverts perhaps what people over there think, even what locals actually want here. Because if you've got one person who was the former mayor saying, this is what's needed, this is what we want, give it to these developers, some of whom are my friends' campaign contributors, okay. But that kind of creates a narrative that is not just dishonest, but actually warps the whole idea of what these projects are intended to do.
we have to understand that politicians like Jake Day, even though he may be from here, he may have been born and raised here, he has higher political aspirations. And what he's doing is simply, as with many people, including, in my opinion, our county executive, their positions as mayor or county executive, respectively, are nothing but a stepping stone to higher office. So I have to ask the question, do they really care about us here, or do they care only about their own political futures?
And doesn't it make your shoulders sore when people are stepping on you as a stone all the time?
I tell you what, don't like it at all.
So speaking of local representation and the ability for the public to get information, Delegate Chris Adams is going to be at the Westside Community Center on Tuesday, August 12th, so next week, 6 o'clock, and it's out in Bivalve. If you've never been out to the Westside Community Center, it's actually the only community center that's owned by the county. It's a neat place. It's kind of a neat place to go out to around Christmas time. They do a nice Christmas program out there. But it's a good chance. He's there specifically to talk about the state park, which is going to come back up now that they're getting ready to close that deal. We've covered that in the past. But we've talked before, like sometimes we're at a disadvantage here because we're mostly represented by the minority party and, for Wicomico County and our state representative or our state government. But like you said, former Mayor Jake Day, he's the Secretary of Housing. You would want them to have our best interest, but circumventing our local government does not feel like a good way of doing that.
Not in my view.
Well, it's happening on so many different levels. I mean, clearly there's a lot of opposition to residents on the west side to the prospective Wetumpka State Park, but they were ignored. We saw the same thing with the biorefinery.
I want to bring in Jim Atkins, and I want to talk specifically about the legislation that our county council is going to consider tonight. And then, Mike, if you would come back, I do want to talk at least briefly about the traffic incident involving Mayor Randy Taylor. Okay? So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Open Agenda. So in to talk about the county council meeting on Tuesday is Mr. Jim Atkins from Ardella. Dr. Jovanosa, thanks for sticking around.
Thank you.
So gentlemen, there's two main legislative items on there. They're going to have to discuss to override the veto of the vehicle legislation that the county executive vetoed, and consider and hopefully pass the codifying of the hours for the landfill, which will also eliminate out-of-county trash. I want to talk first about this vehicle legislation. This process, Jim, started back in November of 2023, right?
23.
Almost 2 years ago.
Yep.
Next item on the agenda is proposed legislation to establish procedures for the use and operation of county-owned or leased vehicles.
List of complaints and concerns from citizens asking what can be done about sometimes misuse, sometimes people not understanding. Our main things is that all the county vehicles have a seal on them. Is that a problem with you guys?
I don't have a problem with it. I mean, if you think that every car needs to have a seal, I have no problem making sure that the new seal is on all the, I mean, not the new seal, the original seal is on all the cars. I mean, that's fine. We have to claim whether it's business or personal travel. We pay for that. So it's a fringe benefit. Like for me, for example, when I drive to work every single day in that Tahoe, it's personal. It's 10 miles I have to claim that comes on my pay. Also, though, I really wish that the first time we were hearing about this wasn't right now.
They had a work session with the council, county executive and the council. And, what came out of that work session so many years ago?
Well, the work session was the Councilman Holloway basically explaining that the reasoning for it, that, the community liked to, that they saw a local government vehicle to know what local government it belonged to and who was out there, whether it was their county or somebody else, and to show that the county was out there working and they could see people going around. And his suggestion at that point in time was that the county vehicles all have county decals placed on them. The executive agreed with that. Matter of fact, in a period of about 4 minutes, she agreed with it twice that all county vehicles should have county seals on them. That has apparently since changed somewhere between November of 23 and August of 25, because her vehicle still does not have decals on it.
Well, that original legislation went into effect on March 10th of this year, of 2025.
Yes, after the veto and after the override of the veto.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, they had work sessions, they had discussion, they had public hearings, they voted publicly. She vetoed it, they overrode it. And then it still went into effect March 10th.
Yes.
And since March 10th to this meeting, coming up in August of 25, all the other county vehicles have decals on them, except for the county executives. And in the meantime, she's got magnets, right?
Yes.
But that doesn't match what the legislation is.
No, the legislation said permanent decals.
Next on the agenda this evening is the veto of Legislative Bill Number 2025-09, an act to amend Chapter 9 titled Vehicles County to require decals to be permanently affixed to the exterior of both front doors of county vehicles in a uniform manner, and to exempt the Circuit Court for Wacomico County from Section 99-3E. Legislative Bill 2025-09 was introduced on June the 17th, 2020. Council then held a public hearing and adopted the bill on July the 15th, 2025. The legislation was then presented to the county executive on July the 16th. The bill was returned to the council office on August the 1st with the executive's veto.
Entertain a motion to approve Legislative Bill 2025-09 as originally adopted. All those in favor, we'll do a roll call. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. Councilman Holloway? Aye. Councilman Hastings? Councilman Shields? Councilman Ennis?
Aye.
Vice President Merritt?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Legislative Bill number 2025-09 passes unanimously.
So, Joe, you follow almost all the county council meetings either in person or on PAC 14.
That's why I'm losing my hair.
That's not why. It's Joe.
It's true. It's bad genetics, but go ahead.
But does this give you some comfort that there's enough being done to protect citizens' interest?
It's a good start. I think, like a lot of these proposed pieces of legislation, I think it could go much further. I'm kind of blown away that there isn't more of a direct financial penalty with regard to violations. So, for example, why not set it at a certain amount of money that the employee happens to pay the county if they are in violation? Why not confiscate the vehicle? These are things that other counties actually have done and do, not just in Maryland, but in other states. And so I'm kind of concerned that while this is a good step in the right direction, it's come very late and it's still not enough.
But even back when Bob Culver was the county executive, he not only worked outside the rules, but blatantly broke the rules many times. In fact, when he passed away, the county was suing him. And at times, our current county executive has sued our own county. to have the right to break rules that she's wanted, like with appointments.
Exactly.
So realistically, as a county, we should know better at this point. There's been a
if you
legacy.
have to explain it, you probably won't get it. One penalty would be, when it comes election time.
Well, yeah.
If you have someone who's been in office and proven that they cannot follow the rules, they under no circumstances are they worthy of anybody's vote. This is not a political thing. We're not all in the same political party, but if you have someone who can't follow the rules when we're looking, you can be sure they're not following the rules when they don't think someone.
And to kind of put this back on the council a bit, not to excuse the executive at all, but if I have another branch of government whose duty it is to serve as a check and balance, they need to actually step up and do it.
Well, let's talk about the other piece of legislation, the codifying of the hours at the landfill. June 30th, the executive brought to the county a crisis that she may have known about for a couple weeks or maybe several months, that the landfill's running out of space in Cell 8 before Cell 7's built. We know that design process was delayed by her administration. The council's going to consider, they're going to have open legislative session where they're going to have to consider that codifying of the hours, but also codify not bringing in out-of-county trash.
Yes.
Are they going to put penalties in that?
Yes, there are penalties put in that, which are spelled out very well. It's also been stated in the past week to week and a half that since the council has taken this project on, while the executive was tooling around D.C., that the volume of trash coming into the landfill has had a dramatic drop in the percent of volume that's coming into the landfill, since Somerset and Worcester County have tightened up their regulations now and not allowing out-of-county trash into their landfills. And since Wacomico is doing that they've noticed a marked difference out there in the amount of trash coming in.
Do you think she's going to take credit for this as a political victory?
Second item is a public hearing on legislative bill number 2025-11, which is an emergency act to add new sections to the Wacomico County Code to codify the operating days, hours, and locations of county sanitary, landfill, convenience centers, and recycling centers to require compliance by all commercial haulers. They add definitions to prohibit the unlawful disposal of solid waste originating from outside of Wacomico County and provide penalties for violations.
I think we have some amendments that we were, after several work sessions on this and discussions.
We have several.
I know we do have Mr. Spavey is here, Mr. Adam Corey is here, as well as Mr. Illuminati. If you want to come to the table, please do. All those in favor of legislative bill number 2025-11 as amended, we'll do a roll call. Sorry, Councilman Holloway.
Aye.
Hastings.
Aye.
Shields. Manis.
Aye.
Merritt.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Legislative bill number 2025-11 as amended passes unanimously as an emergency act.
But also, we noticed that the landfill did not close on Saturday, August 2nd, correct?
Correct, and the haulers were not made aware of that decision until Friday, with a lot of phone calls and a lot of council people calling the executive's office saying, is the landfill going to be open tomorrow or not?
Well,
People want to know.
I think we all knew she would ultimately surrender. She didn't want to, and that's why she waited to the last minute. But she, when push comes to shove, she really is holding the bag on this because it is her fault entirely. And so I'm glad that she surrendered on this particular issue. And the question becomes, is she going to try to subvert the laws in the future, even after this legislation is
Well,
passed?
I'm not as sure that she has surrendered as she has not gone back to her typical playbook. And I'll use the Board of Education as an example again.
The bait and switch.
The bait and switch and creating a crisis and then all of a sudden swooping in and the crisis is solved.
So you
now we have a landfill crisis and all of a sudden here she comes swooping in,
So
the problem is solved.
So is it fair to say that she never intended to close the landfill in the first place? Am I wrong on that?
You'll never know.
No.
We'll never know.
You'll
but-
never know.
Well, if you've got people on record saying proudly that they bait and switch the public on all times, I guess it is true. Maybe she didn't surrender.
To Jim's point, was it ever her intention to raise our property taxes higher than they needed to be? I mean, her own admission is it was a bait and switch thing. It just the rest of us are here just waiting and with bated breath to find out.
The council drew a line and said, this is going to happen. And it's happened, but she's going to turn it around, and she and her people have saved the day. Now, I'm not denying that I think Adam Corey has had a lot to do with it. There's a lot more thinking and planning going on at the landfill since he arrived than I think probably has been done in the past 6, 8, 10 years. But, were they forced into this corner where they had to do something?
Yeah, the transparency and accountability level goes up if the council stays involved.
Yes.
Well, speaking of that, I want to bring Mike Goldberg back in, and I want to talk about another executive in our area, Randy Taylor, the mayor of Salisbury. Publicly, he had a traffic incident, and he was actually scheduled to come on the show with us today. I want to talk a little bit about the information we do know, and also maybe put a little bit of a break on some of the speculation that's already out there. So, will you stay with us?
Yep.
So when we come back, we're going to bring back Mike Goldberg and talk about Randy Taylor. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Open Agenda. So we want to touch base on a news story that came out on Monday. Mayor Randy Taylor was in an accident, and a small accident. But to talk about that is Dr. Joe Venosa and Mr. Mike Goldberg. Thanks for sticking around.
Sure. So, it came out yesterday afternoon that at a certain point in the morning, the mayor of Salisbury, Randy Taylor, I guess was making a right-hand turn somewhere near Acme by South Salisbury Boulevard, and a pedestrian who I guess was in a walker made contact with the back.
The rear of his vehicle.
The rear of the car. No one was injured. They both refused medical attention.
He remained at the scene.
And the authorities came in and took
state police came in.
State police came and did a standard BAC test, which is common in those scenarios, and then they took the report.
Okay.
And then later in the day at about 4:30, the mayor's office released a announcement, just
acknowledging it.
A statement updating it. Now, in the meantime, a whole bunch of social media photos and Facebook pages were sort of taking it, and in my opinion, sort of jumping to some big conclusions that aren't necessarily accurate, and then trying to sensationalize it for political purposes.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've obviously been on our show many times speaking our minds about the government, but with our names, our real names.
Open agenda.
Yeah, I mean, we are an open agenda. But we're dealing with some folks who are using fake accounts and that sort of thing. And this Recall Randy platform is anonymous, which is cowardly at best.
At best. Not surprising, as Jermichael Mitchell had said in a previous episode. A lot of these same players are sort of professional political...
or maybe semi-pro.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
One comment I saw came from Joey Gilkerson.
Yeah.
And look, I respect his opinion on whatever he wants, and he did use his real name, and that I respect. But to call out the mayor for something that has been investigated, no charges have been filed. There's going to be a report next week.
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember back when that group was asking for a liquor license expansion at their youth sports complex, just 7 months ago.
Yeah.
Again, supported by the county executive, and at one time supported by part of the county council, I think 4 of them. But then they were caught serving underage alcohol to a minor at a youth sports complex.
Yep.
And I've been very vocal that I'm active in youth sports in our area. At no point in time does alcohol make anybody a better athlete or a better person. I mean, a lot of people can function with it, and that's fine. But there's a lot of folks who no one's better off. And accidents happen, and we don't know all the circumstances. We're definitely not defending Randy Taylor. We're just stating the facts that are out there right now.
Right.
We shouldn't be jumping to conclusions on things. Let the investigative process, being performed by law enforcement authorities, get completed, and we'll see what happened.
Excuse me, but this is the problem when you bring in the social media dynamic, is that people then are going to run with it immediately based on what advantage can you gain from it. And so Joey Gilkerson, who has a particular, I think it's obvious, very open political axe to grind against the mayor, who really shouldn't be in a moral position to criticize anybody in terms of alcohol.
Because it happens.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're serving...
you got to pay the price when it does.
Right, absolutely. And if it turns out the mayor, is in fact culpable in this, then he should be held accountable. The thing that I have an issue with is people bringing in their political agendas to this specific topic when it's not relevant. And just to speak on that for a moment, one of the things that I was particularly upset about was that there were a lot of people who I know, who even politically I'm very much aligned with as a progressive, and they brought up the mayor's rejection or I guess hostility toward the Pride crosswalk in social media comments to sort of make a point about the accident. Like someone had said, well, I guess you can at least say that the Pride crosswalk has never caused an accident. Now, I don't know what that has to do with this car accident, but I thought about it. I was like, what if, God forbid, my son had been hit by a car, by the mayor or anybody, and somebody used that same comment to score a cheap political point. How would I feel about that?
It really marginalizes the people involved. And we don't know, was Mayor Randy Taylor the victim, or was the person in the crosswalk the victim? We don't really know. But yeah, when you politicize everything, you miss the person.
And I, to be open about it. Sorry to cut you off, but I just want to say this because I was sort of involved in this. There were a bunch of people who online were kind of criticizing me for carrying water for the mayor or whoever. And I said, listen, I'm not carrying water for anybody, but I'm saying one thing. You can't make everything about politics, especially when it doesn't relate at all. And you can't use sensationalist stuff to jump to conclusions when there's an investigation. I would want the same courtesy to be applied to me or you or Mike or anybody. And it's really disheartening when there are people who, let's be honest, have political ambition in upcoming elections who are trying to game things right now for their own purposes. It's really disgusting.
Well, when you're using character assassination for political purposes, I have a problem with that. Here on Open Agenda, we may attack politicians, but we're attacking them for their policies, for their conduct. We're not attacking them personally. We're attacking what they do. In this case, I think Mayor Taylor is being attacked personally on an issue that has nothing to do with the way he governs, nothing to do with his policies. So let's stick to the policies and leave personalities out of it.
And that's been often my response to sometimes when even I've been kind of sort of approached by some progressives. They say, well, how can you be friendly with the mayor over the Pride Crosswalk? I was like, well, look, I disagree with the mayor probably about 90% of the stuff. I'm very supportive of the housing policy because I think the housing policy, it makes a lot of sense. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to go out there and literally spread rumor or make accusations that I know aren't accurate.
Yeah.
Again,
to
as you said,
political objectives, people will use any means necessary, and we see it whether it's on the left or it's on the right. We're seeing it from both sides. We have a lot of extremists on both ends of the political spectrum, in
and
this
just
county.
ambitious people too who want to.
Well, there's a reason behind
Their ambition, whether you take someone like Jake Day, who's a Democrat, or someone like Julie Giordano, who's a Republican, is by splitting us up. They can control one side to the other.
Divide and conquer.
Yeah, divide and conquer. But the truth of the matter is, just like in our group, in our larger group, the people behind the camera and the other parts of our group, it's not a political thing. It's about how do you live in your house. And Michael Langford said it last week.
Yeah.
I don't really care as much about national politics because it's not where I live. I live here.
Right.
Any of us could be in a crosswalk and have a pedestrian just a little bit too close, or we're closer than we think. And if we stay at the scene and the police are going to do an investigation, then I think we're owed the benefit of the doubt, at least until the report comes out.
Yeah.
And then if there's consequences to be paid,
absolutely,
they need to be paid.
Let the facts come out.
Yeah. Now, Mary Taylor did say, and we can't really verify it, that the gentleman's walker was broken, or the pedestrian's walker was broken, and a new walker was donated by the Lions Club later that afternoon. That's at least part of the speculation, but that would be the best happy ending for
Good on the Lions Club. Thank you.
Well, thank you, gentlemen.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Thanks for watching this episode of Open Agenda. We'll be back next week with another new episode.
So she prefers 4 inches or 10?